Ruben with philosophy again. Today I want to talk about ley lines, the importance or the meaning of energy and your thoughts. So as you know, thoughts, prayer, whatever you want to call them, it's something that throughout history this has been done and has been written in so many terms. It's been written in ancient scripture, biblical scripture, and so forth, religious texts. When you send out a thought, a prayer, basically God or the universe, whatever you want to call that power, receives it and it wants to give it to you. Asking it is given, right? So we talk, the law of attraction and so forth. It's much deeper, and I'll come out with a course specifically talking about the law of attraction because there's a lot of miscommunication and so forth. But I want to talk about the ley lines. There's on Earth, there's certain ley lines, which are energy lines that are all over the world, and there's certain portals, there's certain vortexes in certain areas. And when you throw a thought to the universe in those specific areas, the power of it is much bigger. So it's the chances of it manifesting in your life are much higher. And these ley lines are, as I mentioned, are all over the world. And you can, get a great sense of where they are by looking at the actual spot. Like many religious spots have that specific ley line. For example, like Jerusalem, that's one of the main vortexes. Mecca for the Muslims, certain areas in Hinduism, wherever you see main religion, sacred places, most likely there's a vortex in there. But you could come across certain vortexes all over the world, um, like many historic um, places that hold certain buildings, right? Like the pyramids in Egypt, um, the Wailing Wall for Jews, um, a lot of places, a lot of historic places, wherever there's like ancient buildings in Mexico City, over where the pyramids are at, right? There's certain vortex. How they found out, how they know about these, or how they discovered them is another story that we are not going to get into. But just know that there is like a car, right? Do you really know how a car works? Do you really know how the fuel injection works, how the spark plug, how the gasoline works, how the air mixes with the fuel and so forth? Of course you don't. You don't know everything about the car, but yet you use it. The same thing here. One of the things we talk about, like at this moment, it may not be important where it comes from, how it was discovered. Just use it to help your life. But a specific thing, like you may not have to go to Egypt or Jerusalem or these places, right? You can do it anywhere. For example, dome. Have you noticed the domes? A lot of religious places have domes on certain religious structures or buildings. They have domes. In the Vatican, there's a lot of domes. In Jerusalem, for the Jews, or all kinds of religions, there's always like domes. Have you noticed that? Well, there's a specific reason for that. The dome, it's like it allows your energy, your thoughts, your desires, your prayers, to have that push, that extra push, so which one can be manifested. This is why a lot of religious buildings have that dome. Think about it. Even in governments, you see a lot of domes, right? Have you ever noticed, like, why though? Well, the reason is because that the dome, when you're underneath it and you throw out a certain prayer, it has that extra push. Is that, and especially if you're like in a place of one of these vortexes we're talking about, and you're underneath that dome, the power is increasingly strong. And they're these vortexes really, I mean, they're used in group settings. By who? I'm not going to talk about it, but whenever a certain group wants certain things to happen, the vortexes are great places to make that happen, to throw out their desires. Like governments, that's why governments have them. Um, Many religions and so forth. So, but if it's just you, the individual, of course you can go to these places and throw your desires there and have a great chance of them manifesting. But really, you don't need the vortex specifically. If it's just you, the reason they're used is because the signal or the strength of the energy that you're throwing out is much higher, is much stronger in these places, and they're used for one of the main purposes is they're used to counteract any you know resistance towards that specific dream, right? Like, let's say this certain group, once they know about this information and they want this certain thing to happen. As a group collectively, they may have a meeting in one of these places under these domes, and they throw out the desire, right? Maybe there's a lot of opposition towards that group or their ideas, and they go to these places to throw out the desire, and we're all connected via this ley line, the universal mind, or whatever they call it. So we are connected and we receive these transmissions. When you throw out these transmissions under these domes in the sacred places, vortexes, the signal is received by the collective much stronger.